I wish I had a fancy video or intro about the NFL schedule coming out, but I don't. I'm too occupied by glorious playoff hockey. Sadly, my Penguins are not in it, so I cannot scour the resale market to find tickets to the games. Please accept me waxing poetic about SeatGeek, the sponsor of this video, as a token of my forgiveness. Once again, the NFL schedule just came out and tickets are going to be at a premium. Let's say I wish to enjoy the tradition of another 9-8 Super Bowl in person. Well, I can just go on the SeatGeek app and scour all tickets available from red to green on a 1 to 10 scale. Look to the colors. If it's Irish green, it's very good. I can even get a view from where I'll be sitting in the stadium. And all tickets are verified for authenticity. I'll even use the code TREE to save $20 off my first purchase. That savings might buy me a few pints over there. SeatGeek's seamless and intuitive design makes me not need those when looking for tickets. Now on to the video. Playoff hockey. It's an experience every team strives for, yet it's a 50-50 proposition. You either make it to the dance or you don't. Elimination's a painful pill to swallow. Some teams held on to the very last minute. Some teams were doomed from the start. Some teams didn't give a shit and were simply tanking for draft picks. And some teams were more interested in winning daytime Emmys than winning on the ice. 16 teams have been golfing for about a month or so. Let's look at how they ended up there before their tee time. At this point, you may as well reserve the first spot on this thing for the Ducks. It's the same fucking shit with them every year. A perpetual rebuild without a good chunk of the rebuilding thing. Chucking shit at a wall, but little sticking besides strong goalie tandems being wasted. Tell me, is a 12% power play good? If you can't score, you can't win, boys. Also, if you can't defend either. I'll give credit, there's at least some development going on. Jackson Lacombe looks really goddamn good on the back end. Him, Owen Zellweger, and Pavel Mintyukov should anchor their decor for years to come. McTavish, Carlson, and Gauthier look promising too, but then you get Trevor Zegras. There's falling off a ledge, and then there's the spiral that he's been on. I'd recommend looking up realtors in different cities, my man. The same goes for Greg Cronin. His impact was better than Dallas Eakins, but was it even that good? Or notable? He was told to go away after being unable to get the team out of quicksand. Desperation leads to big gambles. And this one might be the biggest. Coach Q has returned. Twitter took this news with its typical pearl-clutching. Look, the Ducks did due diligence. Q says he's evolved and is remorseful for the situation, and they talk with Cal Beach. If he fucks up his second chance like Babcock did, so be it. Tell me again how this season was Jim Montgomery's fault, Bruins. He was the guy responsible for all the roster and goaltending issues. Nothing to do with Neely and Sweeney whatsoever. All Monty did was drag a near-dead Blues team to a playoff spot. Boston was just dead on arrival. Turns out when you split the two-headed monster as a cap casualty, it destroys anything resembling a competent team. Swayman lost his swagger and Corpy lost anything passable long ago. The year was David Pasternak trying to will a team with next to nothing left to no avail. Just endless failure, culminating with a late-season freefall, a McAvoy injury, and a trip to the flea market. Sweeney threw up an everything for sale sign and shipped off every damn thing possible, including Brad Marchand. Lowball the fuck out of him, will ya? Then he'll only accept a trade to Florida. So it's a gigantic red flag with the team on a downward trend featuring poor free agent fits, but their response is to ignore the real organizational problem. The boys club shall forever remain supreme. No changes in the executive branch. Learning absolutely nothing. The Bruins way. Sometimes when I think Anaheim's in the same death loop, they don't hold a candle to Buffalo's futility. During their playoff drought, the Habs and Senators had deep playoff runs, were forced to dismantle and tank, rebuilt their teams from the ground up, and made the playoffs again. All the while, the Sabres are drooling on the floor, pissing themselves as doctors try to keep them sedated. The result is team defense and goaltending becoming numb to anything resembling competent play. Maybe it has to do with their Grand Canyon seasons. Decent start, extreme cratering for months on end, then inexplicably fine form at the end of the year. Until they can figure out what the fuck's going on in net and manage to maximize their talent without it thriving elsewhere, they're doomed. The hockey world's running PS5s while they're living in their PS2 days. The Lindy Ruff throwback's nice and all, but nostalgia means nothing if you're getting boat raced every night. No need for organizational change, though. Kevin Adams made a presentation stroking Terry Pagula's ego, and he stays put. More churn for the prospect graveyard. No faith, no fire, no semblance of a true future. Close to the playoffs, my ass. I'll say this about the Flames. They seem to be on the right track. Yes, Calgary's incredibly mediocre and lack the horsepower to compete with the juggernauts of the West, but it's gotten better for them since Sutter was forced out. You can see the vision they're going for. Dustin Wolf's turning into the franchise goalie of the future as advertised. Zane Parik has arrived onto the scene. They finished the year white hot, and a young core is starting to form in the shadow of the likes of Kadri, Huberdeau, and Backlund. Matt Coronado just got a handsome extension to make sure they can keep them all around. The Flames just have to figure out a way to score goals. More than a trickle at least, right? Endless droughts cost them a chance at revenge in the playoffs, only missing out thanks to the pain of a tiebreaker. And the blame lies on poor offensive output for long stretches of time. They could never gain true traction. That's just how it goes. Their depth and overall performance have improved, but they need more. Hopefully things that don't turn into Dylan Dubé. So how does a former dynasty forget even the basics of running a hockey franchise after a decade? The way I see it, Connor Bedard is slowly turning into the NHL's Trevor Lawrence. Forced to try and stay afloat surrounded by a revolving cast of sludge and slurry. And Bedard suffering as a result. Misery without even trying is impressive all its own. Their positives on the year are as follows. They got out of the Seth Jones albatross. Ryan Donato would be one, but he never got traded at peak value and isn't returning the team's calls on an extension. They had a good early run of form from Spencer Knight, but he too fell to Blackhawk malaise. Luke Richardson sucked, but his firing didn't do much of a damn thing to change their fortunes. And all they bid farewell to are the legends of Alec Martinez and Pat Maroon. Rangers and Stars fans should look away. So how long until Bedard pulls a Jack Eichel and commandeers his way out of here? I can smell Chicago doing everything they can to keep him happy. Translation, they're gonna throw $14 million a year at Mitch Marner. You can't shit on the Jackets for their year. All the adversity they went through, nearly breaking out of that hellish abyss with their play. I'm still proud of them. Even then, those words ring hollow to anyone in their organization. It still feels cursed. Like Columbus is never meant to experience any sort of joy or sustained success. Or anything good in net for longer than a few weeks. A playoff berth was in sight. And then their march killed them. A furious comeback was attempted, but it was too late. It just comes across as a what-if year. What if Johnny Hockey were still alive? Would the Jackets have made it to the playoffs? On the same note, would Marchenko and Voronkov have their respective breakouts if he were still on the first line? What if Sean Monahan didn't suffer a long-term injury when they were in the playoff hunt? What if Jet Greaves started his amazing run of form a few weeks earlier? It's frustrating to think about. And all Columbus can do is spend the summer continuing to heal. And try to find a new home for Elvis. It's not working on that front. Around the time Detroit brought back Stevie, I had a feeling that the Wings were trying to correct a previous mistake by making another one. The jury's still out on that, but this Iser plan hasn't just gone sideways, the nose is starting in a downward trajectory. Red Wings fans want heads on platters, yet it shouldn't be anything close to this. Their young core is blossoming into something special with more on the way. Yet it can't stop their god-awful defensive anchors or unsolved goalie quandary from ruining things. The whole year was fucked from the start. Malaise all around in November. Fire grew off to the moon. Go on a tear for the ages under Todd McClone, and then imitate the 2014 San Jose Sharks against the Kings. Implosion. They can't even blame a Dylan Larkin injury this time around. How the hell do you have a penalty kill that fucking bad all season long? Can you do anything 5-on-5? Your answer to your woes was Peter Mrazek? Underwhelming like Tarasenko on this roster. Time's running out, Stevie. You either solve the train wreck you caused each July 1st or you get thrown in the fire along with them. All hail the 2024 off-season champions. The regular season was over by the time November rolled around. Hilarious, I know. Turns out when you bring in a bunch of veteran hands to make your team old as dirt, it's kind of hard to win consistently in a young man's game. Especially when Yosei Saros isn't around to do superhuman feats bailing the Preds out at every turn. No goals only on television commercials. Or involving the offense itself. No true vision or ability to do anything 5-on-5. And it only got worse once Roman Josi got taken down by injury. Their supposed young core also got taken down by organizational rot and was cast off for pennies on the dollar. At best. The sports world's littered with teams that tried to throw money around to build a contender and failed miserably. Nashville's just another to add to the pile. Let it burn along with their pathetic performance on the road. Now you just wonder how Barry's gonna try to prop up this collapsing house with more plywood. I cringe at the thought. Remember that face Patrick Waugh made after the goalie pole hoed round the world? That was the Islanders season. Don't even try to look further into it. If you want to experience suicidal ideation, become an Isles fan. The surprise runs of years past have only turned into running water down their legs. What is scoring? What the hell are special teams? What is player health? These are questions that Long Island refuses to answer. Lou Lamorello's that Italian restaurant that was really good back in the 80s, but the old owners retired and their kids are only interested in cutting corners. You get a gigantic portion of an edible slop on a plate. Someone gonna wake up Lou from his afternoon nap? No, he'll just bring in Tony DeAngelo and trade away Brock Nelson? Sounds about right for him these days. The Islanders sit around, do nothing, and before you know it, they have the worst winning percentage from the Four Nations starting to the end of the year. And that's not even getting into the team ready to kill Wah. We think things have gone foobar over here. But perhaps brighter days are ahead. The Owls finally realized that Lou's been cashing Social Security checks decades after he was dead and trimmed the fat. Now he can take his afternoon naps in peace. Amazing the moment they make a wise decision they're rewarded by the gods. The Owls won the draft lottery. I don't know how the hell it happened, but they have the first overall pick. Maybe they won't squander it like they did with Tavares.
Soap opera fans rejoice. This season of All My Rangers was truly one for the ages. A year that will be remembered among some of the most drama-filled in team lore. The locker room rebelling against Chris Drury's wishes to overhaul the core. Casting off beloved leaders like Jacob Trouba and Barclay Goodrow have destroyed the entire fabric of the lineup.
Seriously getting that pissy over losing an overpaid fourth liner and an elbow extraordinaire? What a bunch of bitches.
Even for extending Chesty long-term and bringing back the wonder of JT Miller, the Rangers season was one of miserable disappointment. That's putting it nicely. Beware the Ides of March. That month was the Brutus. A two-bread man, then fall the rags. A season full of joy for their opponents, and retribution will be swift. In due time, perhaps Mika Zibanejad will also be threatened with the waiver wire. No need for Kreider, he's already long gone. There's only room for one Miller on this team, sorry, Keandre. Peter Laviolette checked out months ago. His inability to shore up this disaster led to his ouster. No surprise there. Also not a surprise is the new alpha dog to clean up the wreckage. Hopefully this Sully won't have to make an emergency landing in the Hudson. Even as the season ends with a thud, it doesn't stop the trials and tribulations of All My Rangers. Drury's got the full support of ownership. This isn't ending anytime soon.
Rebuilds are a funny thing. They're completely necessary for teams with no real future, but many will resist the thought of such an enterprise. Just look at the Flyers under Hextall and Fletcher. That's why teams should fully engage instead of taking half measures. Especially with this Philly team, with the Swiss cheese they call goaltenders. Those men only had two modes, suck and sieve, dissipating into the wind like Sean Couturier's ability. A season full of goals put into their own net. Just like an all-you-can-eat buffet, it never ends. Only for Philly's anemic power play. Like many teams on this list, the March freefall was a very real phenomenon. There will be no eruption of fury. Mount Tortorella went dormant here a while ago. He don't do rebuilds. And he don't do lazy Russians that don't play defense. Once he had enough, Torts publicly threw himself under a bus and got fired shortly after. Don't worry, Matvei Mishkov. You can now score to your heart's content, just like God wanted. Or perhaps Rick Tocchet coming home to coach will force him to play defense. Maybe God simply hates the Flyers. In the time I speak this sentence, the Penguins have just given up a goal on the first shot against them. This happened 15 times this year. Let that set the tone for how Pittsburgh's being buried alive to much jubilation. Refusing a much-needed rebuild for far too long has forced the hands of fate to push them into the abyss. Or perhaps that was just Tristan Jarry imitating a self-destruction 2021 Islander style. This guy was once considered good? The Pens were once good? Now with the fire sale they had at the deadline. Minus Ricard Raquel, of course. And then the long-needed moves happened. Aside from an infusion of youth, Sully's taking his bag and going elsewhere. Good coach, but long past his expiration date, and the team was a poor fit personnel-wise for his style. If not him, it might be Chris Letang who needed a hole repaired in his heart. Dude, sometimes you have to hang it up for your health. 2 strokes, injuries galore, and now this? Sidney Crosby may be ageless, but time has caught up to Letang and Malkin in the worst possible ways. All that while Erik Karlsson and Ryan Graves become deserving whipping boys for what they call defense. The Pens really think they can flip this back to contention in 2 years? Oh, you sweet, naive summer child. Welcome back, NHL teams. You've given us all the garbage and refuse you can spare. And we're happy to announce we can take plenty more at the San Jose Super Wholesale Emporium. With just a few draft picks or prospects, the Sharks will acquire your cap dumps and buyer's remorse and refurbish them for your future playoff runs. Just look at these success stories over the past year. Mackenzie Blackwood, successfully rehabilitated. Mikhail Grenland and Cody Ceci, successfully rehabilitated. Jake Wallman, successfully rehabilitated. Vitek Vanacek, flipped. The terrible performance all around means nothing when the art of the deal's involved. We have a Macklin, Celebrini, and Will Smith to build on, and nothing's gonna stop this sucking from happening. The second overall pick will add even more of a bounty. The blood cost is in Logan Kutcher retiring due to injury, and Marc-Edouard Vlasic potentially being bought out. All that shall remain is the perpetual flipping for a brighter future. Only at the San Jose Super Wholesale Emporium. Hurry before these deals end up like a third period lead and go bye-bye. I remember the hype we all had for Seattle when the expansion draft happened. Look at what Vegas did in a short time frame. The Kraken will be at the top before you know it. The only problem is that to be the Golden Knights, you must be forward-thinking and open to extreme risk. Seattle definitely isn't that. Mediocrity abound with a mishmash of player types, concepts, and philosophies only leading to dead ends at every turn. This team has become Philip Grubauer, a franchise brought in with good intentions but has proceeded to do nothing but sabotage their own efforts. The same may very well be happening to Andrei Burakovsky's vanishing act. Or was that just the injuries to everyone under the sun? The group that paid that much money to Chandler Stevenson may not know what they're doing? What makes you say that? The Kraken only turned Disco Dan into canned Bilesma in one season. He's not good, but he's not at fault for this. That would be Ronnie Franchise. Which is why he got fired via promotion for Jason Botterill? Honestly, his Sabres tenure mirrors the Kraken's act of things blowing up in their face. At least they have young talent and got some first from the Lightning at the deadline. They might get more futures for Jared McCann? It's honestly so relieving that I could start this franchise's recap without talking about how much of an organizational shitshow they are. Moving to Mormon country at least has given them stability. Just not on the ice. The fledgling hockey club still has to figure out the whole consistency thing. It's what tends to happen when a young team is trying to find their footing. Talent starting to fill into the roster, but lacking that last bit to truly get them into contending status. Trials and tribulations of a mid-tier team. Injuries in that late December to early February skid did them in. Yet that doesn't really matter in the inaugural year. After a false start because the Yeti Cooler Company couldn't come to an agreement, Salt Lake City has a new identity. The days of the Utah Hockey Club are over. Welcome the Utah Mammoth into the hockey world. They pretty much took the Yeti logo and added a tusk to it. I like the name and design. The opening salvo's out of the way, but there's much more work to be done. Winning the draft lottery and selecting fourth can help a little bit in that quest. Get to it, boys. Canucks fans, grab yourself a drink before you sit down. Make that about 7. You thought the Rangers had themselves a soap opera this year? Oh boy. Just you wait until you hear about what happened in Vancouver. Civil wars. The relationship between Elias Pettersson and JT Miller unraveled faster than their bottom six's unsustainable scoring ability. Quiet stewing became borderline open conflict. The schism broke apart the locker room, and Jim Rutherford merely threw more fuel on the flames. It forced JT Miller's firebrand leadership back to New York City. That trade merely reinforced one thing. Last year was a fluke. The disastrous 2022-23 campaign is the standard. Endless injuries, a potentially career-ending one to Philip Hedl, Thatcher Demko might be on the outs, Dakota Joshua being diagnosed with testicular cancer. That's not even getting into the Brock Besser situation. So you didn't trade him only to potentially lose him in free agency? Get ready to learn the axe, Patrick Allvin. Desperation heaves and overhauls of the roster were for naught. Vancouver tire fire will keep on burning. Dead serious, too. Elias Pettersson's future still in flux after a slumping year. Rick Tockett's option was declined, then he fucked off due to a contract impasse. And Quinn Hughes is a flight risk rivaling an athlete in the Soviet Union circa 1980. Unless JR borderline tampers during a press conference. May the shit show continue for time eternal. Or until the Aquilinis sell the team. Feel like that's ever gonna happen. Good luck over there, Adam Foote. Here's an expired fire extinguisher to try and douse the flames.
Batherson across, and picked off by Benoit. And he'll start back. So on Benoit into the zone, drops for Novi. He's through!